Do me a favor. Could you say senator instead of ma'am?
I love these members that get up and say, read the bill.
What difference at this point does it make?
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
We know that the free market is nonsense.
This liberal will be all about socializing, will be about basically taking over and the government running all of your companies.
The time has come for unfiltered, politically incorrect common sense. Welcome to the wild world of Cowboy Logic.
And welcome back to the wild woolly world of Cowboy Logic. Another Tuesday evening in, I was going to say New York. We're not in New York, are we? In Georgia. And
you know how we can tell that we're not in New York?
Because I don't say y'all?
No.
How?
It has to do with wiener.
Oh, there's no wiener.
It has to do with a wiener spitzer.
But what I wouldn't give for a nice greasy sausage sandwich with onions and peppers on it down the Jersey Shore right now. That's summer down the Jersey Shore. And they have rebuilt, supposedly. Not as much as they needed to, but they have. Speaking of rebuilding, Obama says the top tax rate should be 28% for corporations, 40% for small businesses, even though, of course, small business is what really drives the economy. And darn it, Don, we didn't go up to Chattanooga today to see him give this speech. Just a few hours away from us.
Was it today?
How did I
thought
miss
it was
that
yesterday.
I don't know. It was today, I think.
I felt his presence.
You did?
Yeah.
Anyhow, there's a couple $1 trillion overseas these corporations have overseas because of the high taxes. So what is he going to do? He wants to tax that money that's overseas. So I guess it's going to lure them back in if you tax that more, right? Does that make sense to you?
He's tax man.
The tax code is just so riddled with wasteful loopholes that many companies doing the right thing and investing in America pay 35%, he said, while the corporations with the best accountants stash their money abroad. Those evil companies that try to make money and actually employ people. So let's just push them all out of the country and we have nothing here. That makes sense to me. Yeah? No? This is a Cowboy Logic alert. What am I alerting?
Anthony Weiner has not pulled out.
But his campaign manager has. Does Anthony Weiner slump in the polls? I don't know. I haven't really. This is a Cowboy Logic alert. I have this Pavlovian response when you do that. Will you stop?
I know. It is funny, though.
It is. And I didn't even,
and
I skipped over the Weiner
someone
stuff.
is laughing other than me.
The Wiener Spitzer whole thing going on in New York is.
I still say that sounds like it's some kind of a Swiss German dish.
Yes, and I can't stand that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, das ist good. Let's have the Wiener Spitzel.
Oh boy. Okay, members of Congress and their personal staff getting a little anxious because Obamacare is drawing near. Bet you should have read it before you passed it. The president apparently crisscrossing the country, spending millions to promote Obamacare. Of course, we're broke, so spend, millions promoting something that's going to fail anyhow. But members of Congress and their personal staff getting very anxious about this because it may cost up to $5,000 a year for individuals and $11,000 for families. Well, I guess he was right. It's not going to cost you a dime more. It's just going to cost you a few thousand more. That's all.
Let me flash back 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Where I had liberals, white liberals that were calling me a racist, saying, "Oh, Cowboy, you're just overreacting.
Yep.
You're just overreacting. You're a right-wing nut.
Mm-hmm.
And a racist.
A Tea Party nut.
That's
right. What you are. And you know what else? The Kaiser Family Foundation said it's not going to cost any more. That's like the fox watching the hen house saying, okay, don't worry, I won't eat any of the chickens. Come on. The Kaiser Family Foundation, just the name. They are big pharma. They are big health care. They wrote the bill. Hey, speaking of Jersey Shore, you got to love this. Feuding among possible Republican presidential candidates already starting. Rand Paul says New Jersey Governor Chris Christie was the king of bacon. And Christie apparently had chastised Kentucky for taking more federal money than New Jersey. Paul said, well, we have 2 military bases. That's the reason. Can they just stop? The Democrats got to be loving this.
Oh, sure they are.
You got to hand it to the Democrats.
The Democrats have been loving everything that the Republican Party has been doing for years.
I know.
Because it's an embarrassment.
Of capitulation. You got to love the Democrats, though. You got to hand it to them. They stick through thin and thin behind their person. They will
tell a lie until you believe it.
Well, that's true. And Obama even said that he learned that at a very early age, but that's another story.
I would like to say hello to someone that I hope is listening tonight that I had a long conversation with today. I will refer to her only as Lady D. She is a diehard Democrat, very articulate, very intellectual, very bright, and has an enormous backbone. I would not mess with Lady D. I do not mess with Lady D. Having said that, she and I had a very interesting conversation today. At least it was interesting for me, and at some point, hopefully it was interesting to her, about the Frederick Douglass Republicans, as well as at least my humble thoughts as to why the Democrat Party has found no more use for Black America anymore.
Well, they don't need them anymore.
We had a
They
long
need the
conversation, and at some points I hope that I might have struck a nerve with her to get her to listen tonight. So, Lady D, if you're listening, sure do appreciate you spending time to listen to me this afternoon.
All we ask is that you listen with an open mind, because what we say is what the mainstream media refuses to report. To the point, really, of drinking the Kool-Aid, the grape Kool-Aid, to where they even surprise me. I mean, I saw a lot of this when I worked in New York, but not so blatant now. I mean, at this point, usually journalism would come out. You don't even see the IRS scandals, the NSA, Benghazi,
those are
Extortion 17.
Phony, silly scandals.
And the thing is, the fish does rot from the head down, although people who fish tell me that really is not the case. The body rots first.
Danny Hamilton may be listening again tonight. He's an avid fisherman.
We could ask him that.
That's right.
But the point is, by President Obama saying these are phony scandals, and by saying Trayvon, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon, or I could have been Trayvon Martin 30 years ago. These are key phrases by the big man. I mean, no matter, you see it in companies too. If the boss says something, they have their marching orders. And the willing grape Kool-Aid drinkers in the media are falling right behind. They really are useful idiots at this point. As who was it that said that? Was it Karl Marx? Hitler?
I'm sure it was someone.
One of those commies said that. Speaking of things that's going on that is not being talked about, again, the IRS, the NSA, Benghazi, Extortion 17. What is going on with Congress, and why are they appeasing the Democrats, the Republicans, this is appeasing the Democrats, really, by never talking about this stuff? And then you know what else? Boehner. Oh, my gosh. I want to puke. I'm sorry. John Boehner is going to slow walk immigration across the finish line. They're not even going to talk about it. You notice they're not talking about it now because they have to go home in August and face the wrath of the people they're supposed to represent. So what's happening is, well, we're going to kind of just not say anything right now.
What do you say about half these putzes end up taking vacations out of the country?
Oh, I'm sure. They're not going to want to face the wrath of the people they're supposed to represent. And so I think that we need an Earth to Boehner sounder of some sort. You represent us, sir. All you people in Congress, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever. You represent us, not the other way around. And I'm really getting sick of this. This is just a joke. And here we are, the bastion of liberalness, Detroit, having a house for sale for $1 that is still on the market for 519 days.
Boy, that has got to be a beaut.
As a real estate agent,
what's the commission on that? What do you get? 7%? So you get 7 cents? Hey.
It's more like 2 or 3 now. But, look at Detroit. And you know what they did yesterday? They went on strike at fast food restaurants in a lot of big cities that are having serious financial problems, demanding $15 an hour, including Detroit. And they wonder why the city is bankrupt. I believe it said 25% population drop in the last 10 years.
$15.
The only thing increasing in Detroit is the Muslim
get a
population.
Hamburger with lettuce and mayonnaise only on it.
It's unbelievable. We're going to be talking about all this stuff with our we have a group chat coming up.
Who is
at 9:30.
the idiot that suggested that Sheila Jackson Lee would be a great nomination to replace Janet Napolitano? Who is the idiot woman that is brain dead that actually suggested that?
Well, actually, I know a few people who live in Houston that are saying, please, yeah.
Well, yeah,
take her.
because it would remove her from the state of Texas, which is very much like flushing a toilet. But I read this, and no, I didn't actually pee myself. I said that on Facebook that I laughed so hard that I peed myself.
Oh, my gosh.
That wouldn't have happened because I wear Depends. And matter of fact, I'm peeing myself right now. But that's another story.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, but seriously, Sheila Jackson Lee, what an imbecile.
I don't know. What are they thinking? It's almost like they take the least qualified to do anything.
That would be like saying John Boehner.
Well, yeah. He's just as bad. And just thrust him into these positions where they are just totally inept. I mean, really, the Supreme Court comes to mind, too. They've got ideologues in there. That's all they want.
I believe, and I'm sure you agree with me because we talk about this kind of stuff 24 hours a day. I believe Washington is gone.
Yeah.
I think that it's gone. Mm-hmm. And I think for us to sit around and try to figure out a way to fix Washington is a complete waste of our time. It's gone. My suggestion, and I'm not real sure how to motivate people to do this, but my suggestion is to start in the state. Start locally. Start with your city. Start with your state. Endorse. Put money behind. Back. Call the people that can make things happen in your state. Because Washington, D.C. is gone.
Well, Mike Lee actually said that yesterday. He said it's not a left or a right thing. It's Washington, D.C. against the people they're supposed to represent. The people don't want immigration reform right now, at least the way it's being presented. The people never wanted Obamacare. 50% or more still don't want Obamacare, and it's been consistent since that thing was passed. It's a way to basically economically kill this country, and then you're going to add immigration on top of that all with some 30 to 40 million illegal immigrants just flooding in, and their families as well, when most people that are here right now came legally. It's just not right. I'm for legal immigration, not illegal immigration.
Exactly. And it does need to be restored. It needs to be fixed.
But fix the border first. We're the only country in the world that doesn't... Try coming from South America and Central America into Mexico. You can't. They don't want them. But Mexico calls for us to have a porous border and let everybody in and out. Who knows how many terrorists or whatever is coming in and out? And that's a no-brainer right there.
Los
By the way,
baños.
Apparently, the Congressional Black Caucus, by the way, is what suggested Sheila Jackson Lee.
Un momento.
Yes.
See? Los baños.
Okay.
No.
Excused?
No. I went to Home Depot to study some Spanish the other day and learned that. Because they've got big, huge flashcards. They've got English. They've got Spanish. It allows you to learn a second language and shop for tools and hardware things.
The Home Depot is my home away from home. That was like Toys R Us when I was a kid.
Baños.
Yeah. Yes, okay. I'm glad you're learning.
I'm moving away from that.
If you do one word a day, you'll really have it down in a few years. You'll
True.
have a decent vocabulary.
Yep.
Look, let's talk about who we're going to have coming up very shortly. And I'm excited about this because we have a roundtable talking about just about anything the mainstream media won't talk about. And a lot of things the mainstream media refuses to talk about because if you do, you're racist. Rosie Johnson from Naples, Florida will be joining us. Stan Levy from L.A. via Georgia Tech. And Keith Coppage. 3 folks who are going to be talking to us about race, among other things, and just what's going on, how the way this administration affects them, and what is going on really in the United States as far as race relations, and just about anything else we decide to talk about.
That's the beauty of the round table.
Yeah, and it's a beauty having your own show, too. I really do enjoy it. Stan and Keith are African-American, black, however they want to refer to themselves.
They are black guys.
Okay, and Rosie...
We don't hyphenate on this show.
Rosie is Hispanic, and I wouldn't...
Rosie's just hot.
Yeah, she's cool. Rosie doesn't take no
No,
crap from anybody.
she's cool.
Yeah.
But she's hot.
Okay. All right. I'll take your word for it.
Of course, not as hot as you are, my dear.
Stop. Well, totally unbiased opinion in your... from you, I'm sure. But we'll be talking to them shortly. And you know what? I'm so looking forward to this because we chatted with them yesterday just briefly to get all the technology worked out here. And I really feel that this is not something that needs to be swept under the rug. You got to talk about it. Even a few years ago, did you ever even think about somebody's race while you're walking around? I never did. Did you ever think about politics and talk about it constantly, even a few years ago, and what's going on in Washington? Usually once the election happened, that was it. You went back about doing your own business and you assume, but you know what happens when you assume. You assume that the people in Washington, since you elected them, are going to do what's right for you, since they are supposed to be representing you. And that is absolutely not the case. And again, Mike Lee said that. I love him. I really love him. I hope he runs for president one day. But he said, and Ted Cruz, same thing. They both have pretty much said that D.C. does not represent the people anymore. They are in their own little bubble. They don't want to go out and meet their constituents. And I really do believe we need term limits. You used to think
exactly.
that just elections were term limits, but that's not the case.
They do not want to leave once they get there. And a lot of them go in there with great, great aspirations.
Look at Paul Ryan.
Their head's in the right
ruined.
place.
He's ruined.
But
I'm sorry.
They get in there and they enjoy the big time life.
And then
it's hard to get rid of them.
It's hard not to lead them into temptation. And you know what? Ryan just totally floored me. And Marco Rubio. What are they thinking? You don't appease the left. The left will use you and then chew you up and spit you out. You cannot be nice. You can't make nicey nice with them. John McCain, another one. John McCain just needs to retire. I really do think that and admire him for his past service to this country. But enough's enough. Let's get some new blood in there.
That's right.
I'm sorry.
That was pretty good, don't you think?
That was very good.
Hey, speaking
Same old
of
crap, different day.
The left chewing you up and spitting you out, I want to do a quick comparison of a couple of quick stats between the Reagan years and the Obama years.
Oh, okay.
And this is specifically related to black folks.
Well, why don't you do that when we have our roundtable discussion?
I don't want to wait.
Okay.
I'm eager to do this.
Okay.
I'm excited about it. Actually, I'll do it, and then we'll bring it back up if you think it's that interesting.
Okay.
But during the Reagan years, black unemployment was down 20%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Obama, during his 5 years, black unemployment is up 42%. Black teen unemployment during the Reagan years, down 16%. During Obama's 5 years, it's up 56%.
Wow.
Income rates. Now, these are obviously adjusted. But the income rates for whites and Hispanics, los baños, have gone up, or they went up during the Reagan years. During the Obama years, they went down for blacks.
That would be the evil trickle-down economics you're referring to.
Well, you know, a lot of libs will bash Reagan, and they'll talk about all the things that he tried to cut and he tried to do, and he didn't do this right to their liking. Nobody's going to ever like. You know, a liberal is not going to like the greatest conservative president ever to live.
And he was also a Washington outsider. They didn't like him in Washington either. The mainstream Republicans don't like the Tea Party and don't like the Reagan conservatives. And because it actually does not empower, the whole problem is power. That's what it boils down to, power and money. And if you let people alone and allow them to create jobs and don't restrict their attempt to build a business, especially small businesses, which is the backbone of this country, instead of upping taxes on everything and upping spending again, you know, what happens is you create jobs, more and more people pay taxes. Hey, you actually get more money into the government coffers, which is what you want in the first place, isn't it? But see, that's not the kind of money they want. They want money that they can take from the rich and spend it the way they want. I've never seen the government create any kind of productivity at all. All they do is take. They're like a big leech.
How do you really feel?
Actually, a tapeworm. I think, you know what it is? It's a tapeworm. It's a tapeworm that eventually kills the host.
That's like white onions.
That's pretty good.
I can't eat white onions because they remind me of tapeworms.
But that's exactly what the government is becoming. Well, I wonder who does Sheila Jackson Lee's manicures. Darn, those are beautiful nails. I'm looking at the Drudge Report.
Sheila Jackson Lee. I want to puke when I think of this woman. I'm sorry. I'm sure that her family loves her, and I'm sure that there's at least a half a dozen of her constituents that love her, but she makes me nauseous.
Well, it's just all about power. It's just all about power and politics. And
can you imagine if she was head of Homeland Security?
Well, I don't think it's any worse than what we have there now. Seriously. When you think about it.
You mean Janet Napolitano?
Your friend, Janet Napolitano. Oh, my gosh. Home ownership has hit an all-time high in 2004 under the evil Bush.
The massive spending Bush.
Yes.
Hey, he's no friend of mine. I liked him in 2000.
Yep.
But he lost me about midway through 2003, and then the Republican Party lost me in 2005.
Yeah, because he basically switched and didn't, just said, okay, I guess there's no difference. We're going to really dull the line between the Democrats and the Republicans. It was getting dull before, but now we're really going to dull. And now those evil Tea Partiers came in, and even though they put us in power, or at least gave us a few more seats, we're going to vilify them as well. But anyhow, home ownership hit an all-time high in 2004. Now, it's the lowest in 18 years. Why do you think that is? Can't pay the mortgage if you don't have a job.
True.
Mm-hmm. Rents hitting record highs as well.
Well, that's like, part-time jobs.
Yeah.
Part-time jobs are way up.
Well, no, jobs are way up, but they're counting people who have 2 and 3 jobs.
Right.
Because they're trying to make ends meet. These are nameplate jobs. And again, that's what they want. The new normal is the lowest common denominator. That's what's happening. We have to get used to the new normal in this country.
Normal.
It's really pathetic. What took 230 years
I want to draw
being
some attention to somebody, if you don't
totally
mind.
Totally vilified. Yeah, go ahead.
Because this is our show and we can do whatever we want to do. There's a gentleman that, if you like good songwriting, that you need to find on Facebook. He lives in Oklahoma, and his name is Reese Wilson. He's a longtime friend of ours. He's one of the best damn songwriters that we know. He is the best damn songwriter that we know. Reese, there may be other songwriters that are better than you, but we don't know them. So I must be accurate with my description. No, he's written songs for Let me think back here because I'm not working off of notes. Reba, Diamond Rio, Jeff Carson. He and I recorded one together that is pretty foul-languaged about O.J. Simpson. I didn't write it. Well, I sort of did.
You recorded it.
I'll claim some writing credits on it just because I'm not as famous as Reese. But look him up on Facebook. It's Reese, Reese Wilson. Check him out. He's got a lot of his material that he's written and recorded on his Facebook page. He's also got an artist page that he uses as well in addition to his personal page. But please check him out. Like his Facebook page. Support him. And if you live anywhere near Oklahoma, go see him because he's even more entertaining than he is talented.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
He wears this snazzy little thing when he's on stage. Sequins. Very small.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
He wears that and mandals.
Oh, okay.
With a bow tie.
Okay.
Sequins.
Do women whistle at him?
Mandals and bow ties.
Do women whistle at him?
They do. They do. Yes, they do.
He's got a great voice, too. I love his singing voice.
He's got a great voice, but when you see him in the mandals, it's all over.
All right. One last thing about Obamacare. Little quirk in Obamacare, by the way, actually makes it not pay to work. If you make even $1 over this limit, you can lose your subsidies, and therefore it actually kind of limits how much you can work to get your subsidies. So essentially, it will pay you not to work, which is par for the course and part of the Cloward Piven strategy and part of trying to spend into oblivion until we have no country left. And
let me ask you this,
Washington
Donna.
right now will swoop in and just fix it all up, just like they're doing now.
Why, if something is so great and so great for the American people, I mean, we're not a nation of dumbasses. Why is it that if something's so great for us, that this administration has got to spend valuable time when he ought to be presiding over
Millions
our country
to promote it,
running around cheerleading about Obamacare? Why is he going after Hollywood to try to cheerlead and promote something? The NBA, the NFL, why does he have to have all of this support if it's so damn good? Why would he not spend more time doing what we've elected him to do, which is preside over the country?
He doesn't. He rules.
Correct.
And he's constantly campaigning. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for a third term. I really wouldn't. I absolutely would not. You heard it here first. That's right, I said it. And again, we will be back in just a moment with our special guests, Rosie Johnson, Stan Levy, and Keith Coppage. Stay tuned for a roundtable on just about anything, as anything goes right here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio, the official radio show of StandUpAmericaUS.org.
In a recent closed-door speech to donors, politicians, and media, Bill Clinton spoke about American gun owners. Quote, "A lot of these people, all they've got is their hunting and their fishing, or they've been listening to this stuff for so long that they believe it all," unquote. And we all remember Barack Obama's 2008 comments to a room of San Francisco elites. Quote, "It's not surprising then they get bitter. They cling to guns or religion," unquote. The arrogance of their superiority requires this reminder. They don't rule us. They don't give us rights. We grant them power. They don't make us safe. We pay to protect them. They don't make us free. We're free already. And as long as we have the Second Amendment, we always will be. We are America, and our politicians are only as powerful as we, the people, allow them to be.
This is Janet Napolitano, and you are listening to Cowboy Logic Radio. Yeehaw! Cowboy up!
Hello, my name is Scott Winchell. I'm the National Editor-in-Chief at StandUpAmericaUS.org, and I listen to Cowboy Logic, and I hope you do too.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, wears Vallely hats exclusively from the Cowboy Shop, and so can you. Visit thecowboyshoponline.com or call them at 888-854-6913. That's 888-854-6913.
And another day of
It doesn't matter if you live in Georgia, the U.S., or for that matter, anywhere in the world. The Cowboy Shop will deliver right to your door. Visit the Cowboy Shop for clothing, boots, hats, home decor, saddles, and horse gear. Even children's clothing, anything cowboy, you'll find it at thecowboyshoponline.com or call them at 888-854-6913. The Cowboy Shop, for the little cowboy in all of us. Yay!
I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. And I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. And I used to, this is true. I work in the summer and I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher. Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell. And he says, he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity, allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts, freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, Individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. All divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose. And that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people. And it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. Government is the problem. Government is the problem. Government is the problem.
You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Don't you just wish you could do that to the turds in Congress?
You know, do me a favor. Could you say senator instead of ma'am?
I love these members that get up and say, read the bill.
What difference at this point does it make?
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
We know that the free market is nonsense.
This liberal will be all about socializing, will be about basically taking over and the government running all of your companies.
The time has come for unfiltered, politically incorrect common sense. Welcome to the wild world of Cowboy Logic.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm DONNA FIDUCIA, along with Don Neuen. And this is what I'd love to be able to do in really kind of a free format that we have here. And that is to be able to just bring people in that we've gotten to know. And we're all from varying backgrounds, but we're all Americans. And that is really the main thing. So let me introduce our guest this evening. Rosie Johnson is from Naples, Florida, and we'll get to her in just a second. Rosie, I want you to explain a little bit about, and tell us a little bit about yourself in just a minute. Stan Levy, also, I want you to do the same, Stan, because I would call you a conservative, constitutional expert, really, Stan, among other things. And Keith Coppage, who says at 51, he said he actually grew up in a Democrats for Blacks people pretty much banner when he was growing up, and he started questioning that. He was served in the Air Force under the Reagan administration, and in '84 he officially became a Reagan conservative. We salute you for your service here, Keith, as well.
That would be.
Yes.
What an honor
to serve under Ronald Reagan. And if there's anything else you guys would like to add as well, please go ahead. But one thing, Keith, that you had said that you were happy about, you were glad I left the Democratic plantation 30 years ago. Wish I had left sooner. And I'm hoping a lot of people who are also of minority descent, Black, Hispanic, anything, will start to realize that the Democrat Party is just one really that's going to try to foment a way for you to be dependent on them and not get off that Democrat Party plantation. We salute you for that, Keith. That's Keith Coppage. Stan Levy, are you there finally?
Yes, ma'am, I am there.
So nice of you to join us.
Well, I tell you what, the wrath of Donna Fiducia, you do not want falling down on your shoulders.
Yeah, but he's a lot bigger than me, though. So
sounds like you're driving in the rain, Stan. Where are you?
I am in the car, but I'm not in the rain.
Okay. That's because you live in a beautiful area of L.A., but the bastion of liberalness. Tell us a little about yourself, Stan.
Well, let me see.
Okay, thank you very much, Stan. Now, moving on.
Yeah, well, there was a time when I was kind of like Mr. Coppage. I was a Democrat, but that, thank goodness, has changed. A lot of it, for me, changed when I actually became when I got a better relationship with God. I couldn't find a lot of support for what the Democrat Party platform puts forward. And the other thing that got me to do is start actually reading what the Constitution says and finding out some of the parallels between that and Scripture that I do enjoy. I am former Air Force. I'm basically right now. I spend a lot of time trying to help people understand some things, and the thing I'm finding most is that the hardest person to convince, not that they're wrong, but the hardest person to convince to listen is a liberal Democrat. They won't listen, bless their hearts. But as for me, I'm a father, been a husband.
How'd you like that?
Oh, yeah. And I'm still running my blog, and, blackmanthinking.com is up. It's there, and actually there are a couple of things that are percolating right now that should be out in the next week or two. The one I did regarding Trayvon Martin, which was really not directly about Martin, but basically what's actually happening to the community of Black people in this country as a result of their reaction, was one of the most popular pieces that I wrote. We're moving on to things like Detroit, and also this idea that we have all these conferences. We've had 2 consecutive years of conferences on Black men and Black boys, but they're not run by Black men or Black boys. They're run by Black women. And no one seems to understand why that's a problem. But out here in California, we just try to keep... I'm sorry, go ahead.
It makes sense to me.
Well, it would.
Only kidding.
But out here in California, we have a lot of... you get a lot of challenges, and you get a lot of opportunities to sharpen your debating tool, that's for sure, because there are definitely some different ideas out here. But that's,
I bet.
me in a nutshell. I'm just trying to do the best I can to live the way that I believe we were given by our founders and by our Creator, and try to give somebody else the same opportunity.
Good. Okay, Stan and Keith, hang on there. We want to get Rosie into the conversation. Rosie Johnson, give us a little bit about your background. You live in Naples, Florida?
Hold on 1 second.
Yes.
Hold on, Rosie.
What?
Sure.
¿Cómo está? Come on. ¿Cómo está?
As my mother would say,
I'm trying to
shut
say
up.
that.
Are you ready for me now?
Yes.
No. Come on.
Si.
I'm trying to be suave.
Andale.
Okay.
Oh, well, that didn't work.
He's trying to be the Dos Equis guy, I think.
No.
No?
All right, tell us about you, girl.
Well, I'm of Hispanic background. Both my parents were Democrats, and my mother was a school teacher in New York City, and my dad owned a little lamp shop manufacturing company. I did not know that I was a Republican growing up because we only did things the Democrat way. We talked about, Democrat ideology at the table. And as soon as C-SPAN came on television, I remember in the 90s, I really got interested in watching what was going on C-SPAN. So I pretty much grew up watching C-SPAN, putting it on all the televisions in the household. My mother was like, why are we watching government television? What is this?
Government television.
And I would go from room to room, I'd be doing things, folding clothes or, doing things around the house, and I'd have all the televisions on C-SPAN. And I became really fascinated, just interested by what was going on the House and Senate floor. I felt powerful because I finally understood some things about government and how government worked. And I finally knew that I was where I stood, that I was a Republican. That was to my parents' horror because but the Republicans are for the rich, the Democrats are for the poor. That's the mantra.
Yeah.
The mantra that gets taught, to Democrat kids.
Well, it's the class warfare thing.
I've been interested.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, the class warfare situation that has really been so ensconced now in the public education system and what they're teaching has so come home to roost. It goes to show how 100 years of public education, which I actually think is government education, and I know a friend of ours, Neil Bortz, who's just, I think, one of the best talk show hosts ever to come down the line, who's just retired, refers to public education as child abuse. And it really, when you think about it, it's not physical, but still, it's abuse to be able to mold somebody in such a way that you basically make them a useful idiot, which is exactly what the Marxists want. And we'll get to all that. But Rosie and Stan and Keith, we want to thank you for joining us here today on Cowboy Logic Radio.
We need to have Keith talk about a few things here because he's over there in flyover country and gets ignored by Barack Obama.
Well, that's exactly. I wanted to start with you, Keith. We were talking yesterday when we were trying to get all the tech stuff worked out about immigration. And your thought on the whole situation. There's news today again that John Boehner wants to drag this immigration thing across the finish line. Yeah, John McCain's helping as well. But Keith, you had mentioned the whole situation you remember when you were younger with the Vietnamese refugees.
Yes. I remember back around 75 or thereabouts. I remember Vietnamese refugees starting coming to my hometown, Waterloo, and, I was cool with that, because they went through a lot of things and so on and so forth. And they brought them in, and I was fine with that. But then I noticed that they were basically being given housing instead of, having to go out and compete in the market like everybody else does for rental housing or buy houses or whatever. They were basically given housing. And then they were also given jobs, I mean, we go out there and compete for jobs. We apply for jobs. We have interviews. We go through whatever procedure we have to go out and get these jobs. And these people were given jobs. Mm-hmm. And that caused actually quite a bit of resentment in the black community at that time. And, these people basically stuck around for maybe a couple, 3 years, and they didn't like the weather because it gets rather cold and snowy here, and so they were gone. And then, after a while, it seemed like the next group to come in, all around during the time, when they had the war over in Bosnia and whatnot, Bosnian refugees started coming in. And they did the same thing with them, basically. And and the blacks and the Bosnians were competing for the same job. They were competing for the same housing market, and there started to be resentment there, and there's still resentment there to this day amongst blacks and Bosnians. And then the Mexicans started trickling in, and didn't mind the legal Mexicans coming in so much as it was the illegal Mexicans. And it's gotten to the point where basically, about a year or so ago, I was reading the local newspaper, the Vallely Falls Courier, and they estimate about 4,000 to 5,000 illegal aliens are here in the Valley Falls area. And the total population of the Valley Falls area is about 90,000 people if you count both cities. And, 5,000 people who are here illegally, that's a strain on the job market, especially now because although supposedly things are improving job-wise according to what the official administration line is, I really don't see it that much around here. I mean, you'll see a job here, you see a job there, but, it's not jobs usually for the average Joe. Something like McDonald's might open up, or every once in a while, something that somebody off the street could get and make a halfway decent wage, which might open up, but you have a bunch of people competing for that same job. And
well, that's what really gets me, because now, if you voted for Barack Obama, actually, if you voted for anybody in Washington right now, with this whole illegal immigration thing, 11 million at the very least, possibly as many as 47 million illegals will suddenly be given citizenship. And what you said on a small scale is going to happen nationally, and it's just like opening the floodgates. I mean, we might as well just, let the Hoover Dam of immigration open, because this is a situation where they are going to compete for those jobs that many young blacks here are having a hard enough time as it is, and Hispanics that are here legally, and the problem, and quite frankly, it's spreading out across all ethnic and religious backgrounds, I feel, as far as trying to get a job. And then you have a situation where you're going to even give these people a situation where they don't even have to have health care. They're going to have be given housing, and not housing, but be given health care, or not be made to have health care, the Obamacare Health Care Act. And then you just got to ask yourself why, and I know why, but this is it's very scary stuff. Why. Yeah, it's not the country we grew up in, is it, Rosie?
No. And today, Senator McCain said that a boost in border security doesn't necessarily need to be in the Senate's immigration bill. That it might be a part of a potential House-Senate compromise. These people know what they're doing. They want to overtax the system.
They do, and they also said during the Reagan administration, when they made him compromise on an illegal immigration bill, which he didn't want to do, that they were going to secure the borders back then. And that hasn't happened. It makes absolutely no sense. Stan, are you seeing problems like that out? You must be seeing problems like that out in L.A.
Well, we're in Mexico, California already, so we have. There's a lot. I mean, there are definitely a lot of problems. I mean, we've had L.A. County commissioners basically say that the health care costs, the total cost of illegal immigration to the county of Los Angeles was in the $1 billion a year range. So yeah, we're seeing that, and I think one of the things where people criticize both parties for having no difference one from another, this is where it shows up. There are some people in primarily the House of Representatives, you can't really find maybe but 2 or 3 in the Senate, that honestly understand that what this is about is basically more than anything else, it is the enshrinement of government atop the pyramid of power in this country. If you get to the point where immigration, illegal immigration becomes as out of control as this could be, you'll no longer have a government of we the people, because most of the people, think about this, most of the people who are immigrating here illegally or otherwise, they come from countries where the people are not in control. That is not their government norm. Their norm is that the government tells the people what to do. And now what you have are people who are, our elected officials. I'm sorry, I don't care who you are, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, maybe not as much a Libertarian, but their desire is for government to control people. How better to do that than to basically usher in an entire group of people in large numbers who are used to being under government control?
Excellent point, because the culture for our way of life is just nowhere else. That's what made this country great. And our education system teaches that our country's horrible. You talk to some people coming out of school right now, and they say, you don't really need to make a profit if you own a company. You should give everything you make to your employees and just take, what you need to live on. It blows my mind. There's no sense of business. There's no sense of how to run a business, how to balance a checkbook, nothing. And that is not what this country was built on. This country was built on rugged individualism that is not taught, it's not fomented. And if you bring in more people, like you say, Stan, that have this culture of a dependency on the government, I think we're really, if not already, turning into a third world nation. It's scary.
Well, it's only scary if you, I'll put it this way, if you're a Democrat, or more of the point, it's really not even the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party was hijacked, has been hijacked for a few decades now. But basically, if you are someone who is a radical leftist, if you are someone who actually knows what rules for radicals is and who wrote it, this is exactly what you were looking for. The whole idea is not even. This is about chaos. The only way you can make a radical leftist happy is you have to create chaos so that they can then remake everything in the image of government, not to get rid of the chaos, but basically to use chaos to enshrine government at the top. For example, I can't remember exactly where it was, but one of the things that happened why Tito stayed in power so long, and made sure that they were going to kill each other if Tito wasn't there. As long as Tito was there, he was the only one killing anybody. Mm-hmm. So he kept the chaos under control. He didn't eliminate it. He simply kept it under control until he died. That's what they want here. They don't want the chaos to go away. They want government to control the chaos, and the fact that there continues to be chaos will enshrine government at the head of everything involving citizens.
Which explains why you need the NSA, why you need the IRS snooping around, everything else. I see, Rosie, it almost seems to me like the United States is the bull in the china shop right now. Before, we were kind of just walking around, but now we're starting to stampede. We're knocking everything down, and it's having repercussions even around the world.
Well, this president is a man that is thoroughly steeped in the culture of anti-Americanism. His thinking is linked to his hatred of capitalism, his denial of American exceptionalism. He doesn't hide it. He speaks in terms of that whenever you hear his speeches. It's really very clear to those of us who are paying attention, that this rhetoric about fairness and equality is really it's used to conceal his agenda, this agenda that, who was that was just talking before me?
That was Stan.
Yeah, the agenda that Stan was so nicely, explaining for us.
Yep.
It's amazing to me that the public is so uninformed. People they just want to believe the talking points. They don't want to read anything. They don't want to hear anything more. And they really do want to be told how to think. And that's the scariest part, and it has to do with the American school system, which is it's just a pity.
Well, our public schools, yes, and our founding fathers realized that after a certain number of years, an entire country, through the generations, has the various stages, and unfortunately, they wrote the Constitution to try to stop that, but since the Constitution isn't adhered to, there's not too much you can do about it. You know, Keith, what we also spoke about earlier when we were talking was future generations and the problems we have in the black community due to the breakdown of the American family. Can you comment on what you were saying about that? I thought that was very, very eloquently put yesterday when we were talking.
Well, I can give you an example of what I dealt with today with 4 young men who basically were out of control. They refused to basically be quiet, to let everybody else do their own thing. They basically being disruptive, and got to the point where we had to deal with those young men. And these young men, they don't have any really parental guidance because they grew up in single-parent homes, and dad isn't around. And, you know, every boy needs basically a male role model, whether people want to admit it or not. Every boy needs a male role model. And if dad isn't around, then that boy has got to get his cues from somebody from somewhere. And if dad's not around, then he's going to get his cues from neighborhood thugs. He's going to get his cues from rappers. He's going to get his cues from actors, basketball players, football players, whomever. And the more outrageous the behavior, the more admired the behavior is. And these boys try to emulate that behavior. And instead of being, you know, like when I was their age, being young, basically being prideful of their family lineage, of their racial lineage, of representing so on and so forth, they choose to, as I like to say, act the fool, and they think it's funny, and they don't think long term. They just think from moment to moment, let alone day to day, about how their behavior is going to affect how others see them, and it's just really a pity to watch, because you'll see these young men and think, you know, you deal with 9 and 10 and 8-year-old boys, what they're going to be like when they're 14, 15, 16 years old, and they're going out and not only doing the same behaviors, the behaviors are now amplified, where they're basically being incredibly loud, incredibly boisterous, and, you know, being profane and that sort of thing. And people look at them and then say, well, it's just because they're black is the way, reason they act that way, and it doesn't have to be that way, because like I said, when I was their age, we were told, when your behavior represents your families well, you represent your race well, and most of all, you're supposed to represent God well. If you claim to be a Christian, you represent God well too. And a lot of these boys don't even have a religious background because their parents really don't send them to church, and their parents don't even go to church. So, like I said, these boys take their cues from other male role models that they consider to be role models, like the rappers, the football players, the other athletes and thugs in the neighborhood, and so on and so forth. And
politicians.
It's just politicians too, that sort of thing.
A few months ago,
Bill Clinton. What Bill Clinton did with that Monica Lewinsky thing, it's just incredible what he did. Oral sex is not sex, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even gotten to the point where it's affecting the young men medically, because these young men think oral sex is not sex, and now you have to worry about the incidence of the oral cancers and that sort of thing because of the HPV virus being spread that way, and it's just crazy.
It really is scary. Hey, Stan, we're getting a lot of static from your phone, so when you're not talking, would you mind muting it? Because it's...
Oh, not a problem. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, for some reason, I'm pretty sure... Yep, that is your phone. There you go. Just mute it when you're not talking. What I did also want you guys to comment on, though, because of the breakdown in the American family, and Don, you should comment on this, what happens when rappers and their managers come into your office and you talk to them about this stuff.
Yeah.
They are really clueless to the fact of what's going on as far as the illegal immigration, how that is going to really greatly impact their community and their ability to get jobs. And also as far as how they really relate to their audiences and how that pretty much says, hey, it's okay to go out and just do whatever the heck you want.
Yeah, I do deal with a lot of rap artists, and many of which are wonderful people to deal with. But I had a tour manager for a rap artist that was in my office a few weeks ago, and I asked him very simply, why do some of these young rappers not try to get across to their listening audience, which is definitely both black and white, more of a positive message than a negative one? And to talk about things like the youth unemployment and what's going on, and not necessarily to get political on stage, but to engage a positive approach. And basically he just said they don't get it. Mm-hmm. They don't get it. And an interesting thing that we can get into a little later if you guys want to, but I've got a specific question that I want to address all three of you guys with. But something that we might be able to get into later is the question, when I'm talking specifically to black folks, oftentimes I will ask them about what percentage of the United States population is black. And I get some of the most profound answers.
Wrong.
Yeah. I get, I've had people that will actually tell me that it's 75 to 80% black.
Well, in their communities, that probably is the case.
Well, the first thing I say is, well, okay, you live in downtown Atlanta, and that's fine. Downtown Atlanta probably is 75 to 80% black. But they're stunned when I come back with, 13.7 or 13.9% as the percentage. At any rate, we can get back to that. The question that I wanted to ask the three of you guys, two of you guys and gal, you included, Donna, is that I spoke with a young lady today that is an Obama supporter, and we were talking about the immigration bill. And I said, listen, do you have any idea what this is going to do to low-skill workers, whether they're black, white, green, or purple? That this onslaught of immigration of definitely, predominantly Mexican Hispanic workers, what that's going to do to, and with regard to the conversation I was having with her, specifically black unemployment. And she just nodded her head and agreed. And I said, now let me ask you something. If you had to do a lot of yard work or a lot of stuff around the house that was laborious, and you needed to go find 4 or 5 people to help you out, who would you go to? And her first answer was her husband. And I said, well, let's say that he's not in the mix. And you drive by Home Depot, and you find 5 white guys, 5 black guys, and 5 Mexican guys. Who are you going to invest your money in to work around your house? And without skipping a beat, she said, I'm going to hire the Mexican guys. Mm-hmm. So my question is, with regard to this immigration, I really believe that for the Obama administration, the black population has outlived its usefulness. And I want to know what you guys think about that.
I'll take that one.
Okay, go for it.
Because actually, I actually dealt with this in one of my blog posts. It's very clear that the Democrat is not Obama. The Democrat Party has moved on from black people. They have moved over in obvious ways to the Latin Hispanic culture. The interesting thing is, by having the convenient stroke of luck, whatever you want to call it, of having a semi-black man in the White House has given them cover, even as the very semi-black man that they have in the White House is one of the leading proponents of, we need a new horse to ride. Blacks are going the way of the dodo bird as far as the demographic is concerned. When you look at the murder rates, black on black murder rates, when you look at the lack of marriage, the high divorce rates, high illegitimacy rates, 13% of the population accounting for 30% of U.S. abortions, you know what? To continue to ride that horse is just not dead. There is another one, and that is called the Latin population. And even now, I'm sorry, if I remember correctly, they're 16.9% of the population now. And their views, which are overwhelmingly conservative as far as the way they run their personal affairs, is going to ensure that that demographic increases. Black people do not realize, for whatever reason, I have my own thoughts about that, but for whatever reason, they do not realize they have been passed by. And the fact that they are now acting out in such a ridiculous way with things regarding, say, Trayvon Martin, where black racism is so on display that even white folks notice it. They have now marginalized themselves to the point where not only are they a shrinking demographic in terms of numbers, they're shrinking more in terms of influence because no one sees them as reasonable anymore.
Do you agree with that, Keith?
The floor.
Stan yields the floor. Do you agree with that, Keith?
Yes, I do. I just thinking about an editorial cartoon I saw a while back. It's basically a scene inside a limousine, the black man driving this Davy type setup, and there's Obama sitting in the back smoking a cigarette, and he's saying to the limousine driver, "Just shut up and get me there."
Wow.
He's because basically, Obama says, "Well, yeah, I screw you. So what? Who are you going to vote for? You're going to vote for Mitt Romney? You're going to vote for John McCain? You're going to vote for a Republican? I mean, you don't have any choice. You have to vote for me. So just simply shut up and get me there."
That's just scary.
He doesn't care.
I don't think he cares about anybody, let alone other blacks or Hispanics or whites or anything. He cares about himself. That's what he cares about, and he cares about getting reelected, staying in power, and that's really what it's all about. Don is raising his hand. Did you have a question?
Rosie, do you agree that this immigration bill is quite honestly nothing more than a twofold objective? Number one, to increase the voter database or the voter base of the Democrat Party, and number two, to try and bolster a failing SEIU pension?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, to address what was being talked about a few minutes ago, and I'm going to answer what you just asked also, but blacks I don't know why they don't see that they've been passed along a long time ago. I mean, the Democrat Party is the party that's been in power for 50 years, and this is where blacks are today. I mean, they haven't advanced in the 50 years that the Democrat Party was, spending the money when they were in Congress and they were in power, regardless of who the president was. But so they've been long patronized, And what angers me the most is that the Al Sharptons of the world, they have the bully pulpit, but they use it instead to continue to perpetuate this victimhood, and keep blacks blinded by the lies of the Democrat Party. I mean, it's like they don't realize that they're being patronized to stay down. But anyway, back to immigration. The Hispanics are the new, I hate to say this sounds terrible, but this is, it's just us, right? The Hispanics are the new blacks. They're the ones that are going to be they're going to be rode hard. They're going it's going to be on the backs of the Mexicans, that all of this terrible agenda is going to be passed, because they are right now in the process of weaving the lies and teaching Mexican Hispanics to be dependent on government, and that's why they don't like Miami, because it's full of Cubans, and Cubans know better. Because
Cubans have a great
that's
work
right.
ethic.
They know better. They know. They see the signs. They see the signs of communism just right around the corner.
They saw it in Cuba, so they know what it's like, and so they're maybe they don't get taught it in the public education system, but they lived it, and unfortunately that's not the case in so many other cultures.
Well, the Republican Party right now, in my humble opinion, is so scared to speak the truth. They're so scared because they think they're going to lose the Hispanic vote. They think, oh boy, these millions of people are going to be coming in here. They're all going to be Democrats. We're going to lose we're going to lose as Republicans. Instead of doing the right
They
now.
never had the Hispanic
They already
vote.
are losing.
If Mitt Romney had 82% of the Hispanic vote, he still would have lost. I mean, that's how bad it is.
They never had the Hispanic
see,
vote,
that's what
and they
gets
never had
me.
the black vote.
Well, see, but that's what gets me, Rosie, because the Hispanics, as Stan was saying, they have more of a Christian background. And Keith, I think you had mentioned that as well. They have more of a Christian background. They have more of a family-oriented background. It makes no sense that they're... I thought that it was actually decent that they might be gravitating to the Republican Party. That absolutely is not the case. I don't understand that.
Well,
it's because public opinion strategies are at work, and that's why you, me, and people like us who are just mostly average citizens, it's important that we're talking, that we're writing about it, writing on our websites, that we're trying to inform people as much as possible. There's a new buzzword, low information voter. Mm-hmm. Good golly, that's the issue. That's the problem. There are too many people that are... they have little information, they don't know, and they don't care, so somehow we have to make them care.
I wish that they don't know is one thing, but you're right, they don't care. I actually had somebody on my Facebook page say, so what's wrong with socialism? I'm like, and then he said something to the effect of that it's okay in Europe because look how great Germany is. And I'm like, hello, doofus. You just proved my point. Germany's the one country that does work. It's the only one that's working. And eventually they're going to implode or they're going to leave the EU because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have their own... I'm sorry. I was just going to say one last thing about immigration, but about European immigration. They are flooded by Muslims from Islamic countries, so they have their own issues to deal with concerning the overtaxing of their system. So, yeah, it's not working there either.
Keith, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, in one of the other ways that they try to, that they're trying to control the Hispanic vote is basically the bilingual thing. And, instead of them coming here and learning the language just like other people's ancestors did, basically, keep them basically speaking Spanish, and then the people that want to control them, who actually are bilingual, can basically lie to them about stuff because they don't know the language well enough to be able to figure out this guy lying to us. So you understand what I'm saying?
I just don't get it. When you go to another country, the last thing on earth I would expect is to be able to be handed out something. The last thing I would expect is for that country to start speaking English, unless, they did have English. Yeah. A lot of countries do learn English because of the dominance of this country for the last couple hundred years.
Or to afford you the rights that they don't afford their own citizens.
I mean, you've got these commie libs at the border welcoming illegal immigrants and telling them how they can go take advantage of government programs. I mean, when my great-great-grandparents came over here, they actually came through Canada. The other half came through Ellis Island. If they had a cold, they got shipped back to Italy. That was it. Mm-hmm. If you had a skill, they were really happy to have you, which is something that Canada does. They want more skilled laborers. Here, it's like we're taking the dredge of society. I mean, remember the Mariel boat lift comes to mind, too. Let's just empty out all of our jails and send everybody over the United States.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. It's almost like...
Well, our own administration did that here, if I'm not mistaken. They did that, less than a year ago?
Well, that's true.
With the sequester.
Yeah, that's true. Because of sequester cuts, they opened up the jails. Nobody even talks about that. Nothing gets talked about at all. It's just one scandal after the next scandal, and then it gets swept under the rug.
I'd like to go ahead, Rosie. Sorry.
No, I was going to say the phony scandals. Yeah.
Yeah, the phony scandals.
Exactly.
This president does
talk about that.
Passes laws on his own. He commits all kinds. His administration commits all kinds of crimes, and but nobody talks about it.
Well, if you
you're
do,
absolutely right about that.
You're racist. That's that's what happens. You're a racist. God forbid, if you're white, well, even if you're black, if you criticize them, you're racist. And
Tom.
Yeah.
I gotta ask a question because I listen to this, and there's one thing that always comes back to me, which is in if we're actually going to be, quote, constitutionalist in our thinking, who the heck cares what the government says?
Well,
and when I say that, it's like, have you noticed how much? I mean, the federal government is 536 people, elected officials. How in the heck are 325 million folks going to basically be run by 536 people if they honestly understand who they are?
Well, they don't.
They
That's
don't.
the problem.
Well, I know they don't, but the thing is, it's not what the government is doing that's the problem. It's what the people are not doing.
Exactly.
And as long as
that's
we are
the
focusing,
low information voter.
Okay, but as long as we are focusing on what the government is doing, you are basically at the same time ceding more power to them.
Well, that's why we're
And
trying to
that's the
do this
problem.
show, really, Stan. We're trying to wake people up. I don't care if you're
No, I
if you're
agree.
a
I agree
conservative
with
or
you.
Republican
I
or
wholeheartedly agree. But the point I'm trying to make is that in some ways, and I know there are definitely people out there doing it, and you guys are among them. But it's like the more we talk about the government, as opposed to talking about who the government is supposed to be. The question is, what are the people doing? And what we have right now is the people pretty much doing very little and accepting what comes from government, primarily because they don't recognize who they are.
Yeah.
And as long as we're not doing something about that particular problem, well, it's definitely going to stay a major problem. The government wants, the federal government wants to do this. What I'm waiting for is for somebody to elect real governors who basically know how to tell the federal government, where to go, where to shove it, and how much they should enjoy it.
Well,
That's
they're
really
trying.
what should be happening.
Look at Texas, and Texas is being vilified. Eric Holder's going to take Texas to court over
Texas
trying
is being
to.
vilified, but if you really take a look at Rick Perry ain't trying to stand up for nobody.
Well, he's better than most.
Rick Perry, okay, I'm not saying he's not better than your run-of-the-mill Democrat, but let's not forget, Rick Perry believes that what we should do is basically give illegal immigrants the same tuition rates as citizens.
Well, there's always going to be something you don't like about somebody, but at least he's got an economy that's booming because he's making it amenable for businesses to go there. And a high tide rises all boats.
Well, put it this way: is that the reason, or the reason that the Texas legislature is not full time?
I don't know about that.
They're not.
Oh,
The
okay.
Texas, if you're a legislator in Texas, you better have a day job.
Well, that was the whole point of the Congress having a 2-year term, a couple, or 3 2-year terms, and the senators who were supposed to be maybe a little bit more affluent would have a couple or 2, or 3 6-year terms. But that was the whole idea of our, federal government. And back then, you couldn't just hop on a plane. Like, how many times did Nancy Pelosi fly back and forth? A couple times a week?
good Lord.
How many millions did she
Yeah.
spend when she was
Too
Speaker of the
many.
House? And the thing is, obviously, you had, just like kids are off school during the summer, they were supposed to work and go plant crops, and that was basically why they have off. And now they sit around playing video games. But as the society gets more affluent, we've got air travel now. They don't need 2 months to ride their horses home to their constituents and find out what's going on and in fact, they don't even want, they're brazen enough to say that they don't want to go back during August because they don't want to hear the wrath from their constituents about the whole situation with immigration and Obamacare. So they're putting it off until October. They actually had an insider say that. But it's totally lost sight. And somebody was saying that with the internet the way it is, why do we even need D.C. at this point? They don't need to be there. Do a conference call. Do a go-to-meeting.
We'd be a whole lot better off if...
and then you could eliminate lobbyists,
the thing
and that
is,
is the reason why it ain't going to happen.
What's it going to take to enforce and to implement term limits? It's...
But
I'm all for it.
Do you think Congress is going to vote term limits for themselves?
I don't think term limits are the answer.
No, but they are needed, Stan.
At this point, I almost believe they are. I didn't before.
They're not the answer. They're not the answer. It's way too broken. But they are needed. We have to be able to control and eliminate the career politician, because they get into office, they go into office thinking, yes, I'm going to do great things, and they are corrupted and they are affected. And they end up enjoying.
Here's the only problem with that. If we say, okay, we're going to do term limits, you act as though they don't have a clone, an ideological clone, waiting in the wings.
Well, that's true.
That's not the idea is basically, it's not people that you're up against. It's ideologies that you need to fight. Term limitation does nothing about ideology, and that is the opponent.
That's true.
Matter of fact, if I go to term limits, you know what I get to do? I keep refining my politician with the wrong ideology. I make him look better. I make him talk a little bit better. I give him the right family. I adjust all this while the enemy, which is ideology, is unchanged.
That's true.
And that is what becomes more entrenched. You need to fight the real enemy. The real enemy is easier to fight without term limits, because I can hang the ideology on the individual.
That's true, because people know who he is. But you know what? Like Keith, like yourself, you're going out and you're trying to help locally. I mean, that really is all we can do.
Yeah, and getting back to Stan's point, it all goes back to, why don't people get it? It all goes back to the education process. Government education basically teaches people, government is good, obey government, so on and so forth. In my particular case, most of my friends homeschool their children, so we don't have to worry about that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I wish I could have done.
Yeah, we teach them a lot of traditional stuff, but most of the kids I deal with, they're in government schools, and so they get the government ideology, government indoctrination. Government is good. You should listen to government. They're going to take care of you, so on and so forth. And
the government is the religion, quite frankly. It's become the religion. Yeah. That's why religion's vilified. Well, what do you think about Obama not even allowing kids to go to magnet schools?
Well, that only makes sense with him, because if you go to magnet school, they might think for themselves. They might get the idea that government might not be good, and you can't allow these people to think for themselves.
Bingo.
Think for themselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're done.
It is. And that's why homeschoolers are vilified too.
Well, and they are.
Win so many academic scholarships and all kinds of contests constantly.
My oldest son went to a private school down here in the little town of Roopville, Georgia, and the curriculum was based on the Abeka method.
The homeschooling system.
And in between his 10th and 11th grade year, that summer, I took his world history book and I read it. And by the time I was done with it, I was so relieved, because it taught real history. It didn't bash the United States. It didn't condemn the United States. And when the United States made errors, it talked about it. But it didn't bash it. Now, my younger son is going to a very good, but a public high school now. And the difference is night and day.
But luckily, because of us, he's smart enough
to
notice
notice
that
he's a little
stuff.
15-year-old conservative.
And,
Rosie, hey Rosie, I want to ask you. You are down living in the land of Neil Bortz in a highly conservative part of Florida, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And I want to know if you migrated there for that reason, or if you just like the weather, or if did you pick? I'm not going to say where you live. I almost did. Oh, you did?
Oh, I wasn't supposed to?
Oh, well.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. I've been here I pretty much grew up here, actually. My parents retired here, and I was like, I don't know, 19, 20 when I came here. So I've been here for most of my adult life. And as I was finding my conservative roots, I mean, they've been shaped here. Even though when I lived in New York, I knew, you know, how the Democrats fought, and I didn't agree with them. I think I've always been a Republican because I'm a real thinker, you know, and I read a lot. We have some great leaders, great leadership here. We have a new junior congressman from Fort Myers, Trey Radel. He's awesome. You need to have him on your show sometime. He actually used to be on the radio. He used to be ranting and raving, and he had all his facts, and he would get everybody on the phone, on the radio to explain themselves. He had McCain. He had the big guys. I mean, he just had a real passion. So when he ran for office, he won right away, first time out, first try. I was like shocked. Trey Radel, but when you
how do you spell his last name?
It's Radel. His first name is Trey.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, he's already making a name for himself because he's really a good guy. He's one of us, you know. Alan West, too bad.
Love Alan
Tampa.
West.
I love him. He's still, you know, an activist, but the Democrats did a good job of redistricting and getting him out of office.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of politicking done to get him out because he's such a...
Well, when you have 150% of the people vote against you, it's pretty tough to win an election.
That's right. It's terrible.
You know what? I want to get to Sharia law in a minute, but you did mention Alan West and Keith and Stan. This week, in fact, I was speaking to a friend of ours he's young, really very bright black guy who is more conservative than anything else. He's trying to start a business on his own. And he said to me, and I told him, I said, you know, I've met Herman Cain. He's from our area. I really do like him. I was really looking forward to trying to support him for president. And I was offended when they really brought all that stuff up that was just a non-story that they made up. But he said in his community, he felt that Herman Cain didn't really talk to young black men well enough. He wasn't taken seriously. Why do you think that is? I was shocked to hear that.
Keith, why don't you take that first? I have a thought, but I want to hear what Keith is going to say.
Okay.
Well, I don't quite understand it either because, you know, Herman Cain, I mean, he tried his best to reach out to everyone and particularly get the message across to young black youth, particularly, you know, the fact that, you know, he was a success in spite of whatever obstacles he had, but unfortunately, the young black community, particularly around here, is just more interested in, put it bluntly, cruising the street, listening to boombox cars, and, you know, going out there, getting the latest shoe styles, and, you know, hanging out and so on and so forth. I mean, young black community is not particularly interested in politics until it's time to vote, and then they're told, you know, got to vote for the Democrat because after all, it's for the black man. So, I mean, I don't know what's really going to take to wake them up. I mean,
can I jump in?
Yeah, they need to go to Frederick Douglass, Republican.org and .com and try to figure that one out if they could even take that initiative. Go ahead, Rosie.
I loved Herman Cain. I really, really wanted him to run for president against Barack Obama. I thought he was going to be a formidable foe. I was campaigning for him down here big time. But I think I call it the Bill Cosby syndrome. You know, I think that young black men just don't see an old fellow like him who's made it as relevant. I don't know why they don't, you know, because they don't have enough male role models they can look up to, so they don't see him like, hey, he kind of reminds me of my grandpa, or wow, that my dad's a lot like that, and that's really sad. And
well, they vilify success. A few months ago, we were watching all these Leave It to Beaver reruns. And, you know, and some of my friends, my liberal friends up in New York were laughing at me. Oh, that, you know, women didn't have a chance to get ahead back then. And, you know, everybody was so sexist and blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking to myself, what's wrong with that? Not the sexist part, obviously, and all that. But the fact that every successful person, the father's telling the kids, hey, this guy's successful, this guy worked hard, it was a positive role model, this guy, can play a round of golf once in a while because he's worked all week and he's, earned it, blah, blah, blah. And it's just totally vilified, which I just saw no sense in that.
I'm thinking that Barack Obama may have watched Leave It to Beaver because he took the playing golf every once in a while and really expanded on that.
That's when he wakes up at 10 o'clock in the morning. All right, Stan, real quick, I want to get to Sharia law, but tell us what your thoughts on the Herman Cain situation are.
Herman Cain was a salesman. It showed. It's simple as that.
Really?
I have nothing against Herman Cain. I think he was a good businessman. 999 turned into a fraud as soon as he talked about what came after 999. The fact that he, bless his heart, never matriculated the ball down the field regarding his understanding of foreign affairs. He shot himself. Now, don't get me wrong. The Democrat Party, coming after him the way they did, coming up with these women, it's just amazing how the Democrat Party can find women.
Well, I think the Republican Party, I think the GOP went after him on that too, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't be surprised if Karl Rove had something to do with it.
But the thing is, you can't get rid of the self-inflicted wounds. 999 was a bad idea. Once you understood everything there was to it, it was a bad idea. There was nowhere to go from that. He never educated himself on foreign policy. There is that infamous piece of video where it takes him 14 minutes, it seems like, to not answer a question that I know the answer to, and I'm not running for anything.
But how many times do you hear Barack Obama whispering to the Russians, "Just give me a little more time"?
Obama has a group of people who are giving the answers for him.
Well, actually,
Obama says not. If you notice something, Barack Obama is never the first one to speak on these matters. He's always the last.
No, but the double standard is pathetic.
I'm not saying it's not. But that's just the way it is. By the time Barack Obama speaks on something, they have already floated, tested, refined, and polished the message so that, I'm sorry, Barney Fife could deliver the message by the time it gets down to Obama.
But I'm so sick of hearing. I'm so sick of hearing that it's Washington's fault. He postures himself like a Washington outsider. Yesterday, I'm screaming at the TV going, "You've been in office now for 6 years."
Yeah,
that's
because he will accept no blame. He will not.
Oh, I heard about it in the media. Bullcrap.
But why should he? Why should he accept
he gets
blame?
A pass because the media.
If no one's going to hold him accountable, and they didn't, and now he does not have to run for office again. He doesn't.
Which he'll try to do.
Please explain to me what purpose does it serve for him to accept blame?
But what purpose does it serve for the media to cover for him either? It doesn't. At this point, the guy is in office. Start acting like journalists. Hello, media.
Why?
Wake up.
If they start acting
that hurt my head.
Sorry.
If they start acting like journalists, it's not Barack Obama that they'll expose. It's Harry Reid. It's not Barack Obama that they'll expose. It's basically, James
progressivism.
Clyburn.
Progressivism.
The thing is, they can't expose Barack Obama without exposing the perma government.
Yeah, that's
which
true.
is the longtime elected congressional officials, and also, hey. How about our friends in the IRS who have exposed themselves? But you can't do journalism and not start tearing a liberal government apart. That's why. It's not about Obama.
No.
Yeah.
We think it's about Obama. And the thing is, if you think about it, Obama has become a useful foil. We focus all of our attention so much on Obama, and we miss the point is, there's a government that's too flipping big.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they can't expose Barack Obama without exposing their own themselves. That they've been derelict in their duties. Besides, expose what? That because he espouses everything that the mainstream media believes in.
True.
So they're not going to expose him to try to gotcha, on all the lies and misappropriation of so many different things, everything from mishandling of the Constitution, how he just wants slap over Congress and does whatever he wants. They're not going to expose that.
But don't they realize they won't be here once the government media, the government complex basically takes over? Then their usefulness is gone. All you have to do is look at past tyrants and what they've done to the media once they're not needed anymore. You're
assuming they're bright.
Well, that's true. That's
you
true.
would think they would know that.
But look at what's happened. I really want to get to Sharia law because this scares me quite a bit. And I do believe that because Obama is such a Muslim sympathizer and kowtows to the Muslims, that Sharia law is being fomented here in the United States, and it's doing it at an alarming rate. We've got a huge amount of not just Muslims, but Muslim extremists in the Muslim Brotherhood in the Obama administration, high up in Homeland Security positions. Totally scary.
We've got them on the Supreme Court that are embracing the Muslim Brotherhood. Kagan.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, I want to go to Rosie for this. Rosie, I want you to kick off the Sharia conversation here.
The president, I'm going to go out on the limb and say that he is a Muslim. He's an Islamist.
Yep.
He is practicing al-taqiyya, which is, lying for Allah to get the end result, whatever the agenda, the Islamist agenda is. You're allowed to lie, and I think the agenda is what all good Muslims want, which is to establish a caliphate, which is a person who's going to come in and gather all the Muslim nations. He's going to be the leader above all the Muslim nations and basically be in charge, and that's what they're waiting for. I mean, in Iran, Ahmadinejad talks about it all the time in his speeches, that he's the caliphate. We are waiting for the great caliphate. I mean, he continuously says that in all his speeches. This scares the heck out of me, too. Now, I am a Christian, so I know where that's all, really going. But, and President Obama is not only a sympathizer, but I believe he's a Muslim himself, because even though he says he's a Christian, he closes every door that he can for Christians and Christianity while opening all the doors that he can for Sharia law and the establishment of Quranic principles. Everything from Sharia finance on down to what's going on in Washington concerning hate speech and his agreement, how he handles people in the United Nations and how they how he's laid down our sovereignty basically to the UN and the EU. So I think he's laying the groundwork so that Sharia law will quietly be established, because the Council in Arabic Islamic Relations or American Islamic Relations, that group, their whole goal is to insidiously, slowly entwine themselves in our government, and they're doing it, to establish Sharia law from within, to quietly move in on us. And the Constitution is diametrically opposed to Sharia law. It's the antithesis, everything, if you believe in the Constitution, you can't have both as law of the land. And the Islamists believe that Sharia law is God's law, is Allah's law, but the Constitution is man's law. So they're going to always follow the law of Allah.
Well, the slow infiltration of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Muslim, the extremist Muslim Sharia law into this country really kind of melds itself with the progressive movement, because it's a slow, constant movement toward this, progressivism.
It's a patient movement.
Yeah, they're very patient.
Now, I want to bring up an interesting point that I've thought about numerous times. Rosie, if you were to to place a percentage guess on the Latin population being Christian, what would you say it is? What percentage of the Latin population is Christian?
Probably 33% Christian. Catholic, maybe higher. They call themselves Catholic.
Well, they had millions show up for the.
Well, yeah, I'm lumping Catholicism as Christian.
Okay. Well,
so I would say it's got to be way up there.
That. It's going to be higher than that. It's going to be. I'm sure it's going to be about 70-75%.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I would be surprised if it's higher.
Christianity will go Ash Wednesday. They do practice Catholicism to some extent.
Exactly. Now, my brothers from other mothers, the percentage of the black population that's Christian, pretty high, right?
Yeah, they claim about 76% thereabouts, yeah.
Okay.
I'd say.
Why is the Hispanic population and the black population supporting a guy that is fomenting radical Islam and embracing the Muslim Brotherhood? Because they don't open their eyes to it.
Exactly. A lot of tradition going on. You know,
that's why
I mean, that's what is mind-boggling. You know, people that
Don.
Yeah.
Cowboy, the Democrats.
Hey,
I mean, you got to remember something.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Democrat Party is a religion unto itself. You will find the majority. You will find so many people will basically say we vote Democrat. Wait a minute. But doesn't these things that the Democrat Party does go against your views, your faith, your this? Yeah. But we vote Democrat.
Well, I asked that very question today. I asked that very question today to a black lady,
and
it was. I just got the nod of the head. The bottom line is, you go back to the Johnson administration. Now we're coming off of Shariah and going back into the racial thing. Go back to the Johnson administration.
No, you're not. You want to talk about Shariah?
Go back to the Johnson administration where he flat out, first of all, you know, there's a lot of black folks that are embracing Johnson as the big civil rights guy. Hey, newsflash, President Johnson hated black people.
Yes, he did.
He despised him. He voted down every civil rights bill when he was in the Senate, and he basically came out, and I'm paraphrasing, said, I will make sure that the black population never votes Republican again, and I'm going to do it through entitlements.
Well, it's working.
Well, actually, you cleaned up his language very much. You know, basically said, you know, I'm gonna have them N-word, since we got to be politically correct. I'm going to have them N-word voting Democrat for the next 200 years. That was basically what I understood he told two governors on Air Force One.
Yep, that's exactly
we're 1/4 of the way there.
And don't forget Thurgood Marshall.
What about
Yeah, you're right.
That's right, Thurgood Marshall. What is black liberation theology? How is that gaining a foothold?
Oh, Keith, take that.
Well, black liberation theology, I don't know how to really describe the black churches anyway. Basically, you know, you get together and no matter what you basically believe, you know, we all come together as black men and black people and so on and so forth. You know, we can put so-called differences aside, and you know, it doesn't matter if what you believe is a little wacky. You know, as long as we're together as black brothers and sisters in Christ and so on and so forth.
But is
I think
Christ
black
really
liberation
a part of
theology is more a theology of trying to convince of current oppression than anything else. And there is not oppression now.
I think it's a way to get people away from being a Christian. It seems like
no. It's put this way. It's not basically getting them away from being Christian. It is basically looking for them to have a different definition of what Christianity is. Okay. When you basically come up with things like, well, black people are actually God's chosen people, I'm like, really? So that Abraham guy, I guess he didn't have nothing to do. Okay, so Kunta Kinte was the dude, right? Is that it? What are you trying to tell me? You get stuff like that. you get the idea, which is something that seems to come straight out of the Nation of Islam, that all white people are devils. They stole everything they have, and the only way that they can attain salvation is to give back what they stole. Okay, this is, well, I mean, we know it's nonsense, but the idea, when it's like anything else. If in the black community, you can get almost anything past a black person if you pour Jesus on top of it like chocolate sauce. It's not that hard, unfortunately. And this is what they've done with black liberation theology. Well, there's a Bible in the general vicinity of what they're talking about. Therefore, since the majority of people, the only thing they know about a Bible is the proper spelling of it, they don't open it, but they still go to church. Well, if you put the Bible by it, and somebody who sounds like they know what they're talking about, which makes me wonder how anybody can listen to Jesse Jackson, because who knows what he's saying half the time. But that's a different story entirely. This comes down to, we want black folk to be superior. We can now go to this Bible that you white devils and your ancestors came onto our continent and forced onto our people. We can now use that against you by saying we are the people that the Bible actually talks about. Therefore, since we are those people, we are empowered to tell you what's really going on in Scripture.
Oh,
okay. If you're going to buy all that, then you too can go along with black liberation theology.
I thought it was
Donna
a kinship to
Don,
Islam. Mm-hmm.
Give me the deed to the ranch at any time, because obviously y'all stole that.
That's right.
Yeah, no, we didn't earn it. I'm sorry, I didn't earn anything I have.
No, but that is basic. That's basically it. It catches on. I'll just say it out there. It catches on because black people are racist. They don't want to admit it.
I think
they don't believe they can be.
Anybody can be racist.
You cannot hold to that nonsense without being a racist. There's no other way to do it.
Wow, I love you. That's wonderful. I've never heard a black person say that, and that is so true. Black people are racist.
Well, anybody can be racist.
Right. You know what? Democrats are too. Democrats are racist because they're the only ones who categorize people by color, by race, by ethnic origin. We don't do that. We look at people and judge them by their merits, by the things they do, how well they do it. They're the only ones who categorize people.
What really gets me is I'll say to people, do you realize the biggest place where slavery is still practiced is across the Middle East and North Africa, or Africa?
Yep.
And they mutilate women. They treat them like slaves. They would kill gays. Forget that. So for you to be on the left and find that this is some idealistic way to live, you're in big trouble when this finally takes over, if it ever does. And
you got to go back to something Rosie was talking about, because she mentioned the whole idea of establishing a caliphate. And if you look at what's going, I mean, where were we about 2-3 years ago when we had so-called Arab Spring?
Yeah.
Has anyone noticed? Let's go back. Tunisia was where Arab Spring started, and that guy setting himself on fire started the Arab Spring. It started a revolution, a protest that brought down the Islamist government with a president who had been there for 23 years. Okay, 3 years later, what do we have? 17% unemployment in Tunisia. And you got political assassinations of those who are opposed to the Islamists in Tunisia, and you have an Islamist government. What the heck is happening in Syria if the Islamists are not coming to power? What the heck is happening in Libya if the Islamists are not coming to power? When you can basically go after the United States consulate, rape and then kill the ambassador, and then kill 3 others with no retaliation. Excuse me? And when
what difference does it make, Stan?
What difference does it make? What difference does it make?
Does anybody, has everyone forgotten how in Iran in 2009, when that fake landslide that re-elected Ahmadinejad came out, and you had people in the streets saying, Obama, are you with us or against us?
Yep.
Have you forgotten that?
He uses who he needs to use.
This stuff started then.
Yep.
When you call out Obama as someone who supports the Islamists, it doesn't go back to Arab Spring. It doesn't. This goes all the way back. 2009 was a wake-up call that nobody chose to hear. He supported the Islamists in Iran. The only reason he doesn't support the Islamists in Iraq is he can't find a way to get his little narrow behind in there. He supports the Islamists in Afghanistan. He supports the Islamists in Egypt. Is anybody missing that?
Everything that he supports is failing.
Syria. Yeah. The Syrians are. Oh, come on, this is outrageous. He has basically set up all of North Africa as a potential caliphate to the Islamists.
Stan, I have one word to say to you, Stan. You know what that word is? Chaos.
No, it's not chaos. The only reason it looks like chaos is because we're not Arab and we're not Muslim and we don't understand the way they operate. This is the way they operate.
Well, they have that in their culture.
That's my point.
Yep.
The only place where it's different is in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has an absolute monarchy, and they are doing their best to put the foot on the neck of any Islamist who rises up against the king.
Well, they tried in Egypt, but it didn't work. I mean, that was what happened in Egypt.
Well, but guess what?
Mubarak.
If everybody else goes down, what's going to happen to Saudi? If everybody else goes down, Algeria is about to go down. I don't know if people. What do you think the attack on the gas plant was about?
Mm-hmm.
Those were Islamists.
And what do you think is going to happen to Israel then? Then what's going to happen to Israel? And you've got the press here bad-mouthing Israel.
This way. Now, for those of us who believe Scripture, Israel will be fine. Yeah. Now, we're not going to like the way that they come out fine, but Israel's going to be fine.
Yeah, they're going to defend themselves. They're not going to stand.
No. We keep making. Israel was not going to be the one that defends them. They have the owner of the land who will defend them. All you got to do is talk to some of the folk who fought in the 67 and the 73 wars. And when they tell you how, I don't know how that Egyptian tank, I don't know how that other tank started going straight up in the air. I don't know how that happened. Look, there's somebody defending Israel. It ain't us.
Well,
but that's a different story entirely.
But the
Stan's
thing is,
getting wound up.
Stan is wound up.
Hey, before you get into something, this whole conversation that we're having right now is going to parlay beautifully into next week's show. We've got a gal that's coming on next week, and make note of her name, Claire Lopez, C-L-A-R-E Lopez. Claire Lopez is going to get into the Muslim Brotherhood and how it's infected our government and how it started not in 2009, but back during the Eisenhower administration. Really deep next week.
Yeah, this woman has an unbelievable resume, including declining a commission to join the CIA because she had better things to do. She is really super well learned in national defense, Islam, Iran, counterterrorism issues. So we'll be talking to her next week. So it is very easy to just put your head in the sand. And what I hope everybody listening, and of course our panel is doing, is to think globally and to act locally. I mean, Stan, you keep saying we got to do things. Well, Keith is doing his part. We're trying to do our part by having shows like this and get out and try to help people to just wake up. If nothing else, on Facebook, to try to engage some of these people and then have them finally just never talk to you anymore because they can't argue with facts, or they come around. And if they have half a brain in their backside, they'll come around and start saying, hey, it's nice to learn. It's nice to learn these facts. And I really do feel that it really needs to start, and obviously it's going to get a lot of problems, in the public school system by doing things as simple as saying the Pledge of Allegiance and maybe singing the Star-Spangled Banner when you come into school like we always had to do. It's a national common thread. And by dividing everybody by, pressing 2 for Spanish and 1 for English, and in Detroit, 3 for Arabic, and, fighting Christianity and fighting God, in our daily life, especially in school, by saying it's, separation of church and state and the whole 9 yards. It's a super uphill battle. But all we can do is try to make our own little area wake up, and hopefully that will spread.
Can I throw one more thing out? One more thing out on the table here to discuss before we call it a night. There was a poll, and I don't know who did this. I want to say it was Pew, that came out last week sometime, in which since 2009, the United States has become radically more racially divided. And are you guys familiar with the poll I'm talking about?
Yes.
I've heard that one.
All right.
Yeah, I've heard about the poll, but
I'd like to get you guys' thoughts on, and each of you individually, if you don't mind, the problem, given the fact that we, in 2009, overcame a massive hurdle for Black America, in which, at least the first half black guy was elected to the highest office on the planet. But now we've got a country that's more racially divided, I feel, than ever, well, not ever before, but at least in the last 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go by gender. Rosie, ladies first.
Okay. People thought they were voting for an agent of hope and change, and what they found was that it was a case of bait and switch, and he's really a racist himself. So the poll that you're referring to was done in NBC News and Wall Street Journal both reported it, and it was 52% of whites and 38% of blacks have a favorable opinion of race relations in the country. And it's way down from where it was just a few years ago. So it's a sharp drop since the beginning of Obama's first term. And I think the reason is that President Obama talked about bringing the country together, and whites voted for him because they were so excited that they wanted to prove, I'm not a racist, look, I'll vote for a black man. And he used that, he just, he's a racist, and it played right into his agenda. And because of that, he's talked a lot about race. He inserts it in race. He makes people think about race. He has made whites more defensive about race and notice it more. The more you talk about it, the more you're going to think about it, the more you're going to notice it.
I can honestly say I never thought about it a few years ago.
Never.
I probably didn't think about it my entire life. I grew up in a pretty racially diverse area.
So that's how I feel about it.
We all pretty much work together. It's insane now. And again, that's the chaos aspect of the whole thing. Keith, your 2 cents on that topic.
Okay, I'll approach it from my viewpoint. On an elementary school bus, mostly black kids, they get a new principal and they start talking. The first question they have is this new principal going to be black? And I'm like, what difference does it make if he's black, white, whatever? I mean, we're talking about 7, 8, 9-year-old kids thinking along racial lines because that's what they're taught at home. That's what they're taught in the streets. It's because of the effect of everything that's gone on over the past 5 or so years. There's just so much racial division among little children, for Pete's sake, and among adults it's even worse. And you got whites thinking more about race now, like you said, and they're being attacked, and they're like, wait a second, why? What did I do? I didn't have any slavery or anything like that. And it's gotten to the point where on a certain, I'm a school bus driver. That's what I do. On a certain run, I have mostly black kids and a few white kids, and basically I got to kind of keep an eye on the white kids because some of the black kids will see the white kids and say, hey, let's pick on this white kid. It's a real shame, dealing with elementary school students, and you have to deal with that.
At elementary school level, that happens?
Yes.
So they have to be learning that at home. They're not
Yes, here
born
in
with
Waterloo,
any
Iowa,
kind of
They're either learning that at home
prejudice.
or they're learning it on TV.
Yeah, probably
Yeah,
both.
it's happening here in Waterloo, Iowa, yes.
Wow, who would have thunk it?
Exactly.
Well, Keith, we need to talk at some point off the air because I'm always looking for good drivers that have CDL Class Bs.
You want to drive an entertainer bus there, Keith?
I can make you
Go out
some
on
big
the
money.
You have to be able to put up with a lot of children in the form of rock stars.
Yeah, you got to babysit. But
But you're babysitting 9-year-olds, so I guess
we'll talk
you're
about that
all
off
set.
the air, though. Stan the man, never short on words. Tell us what you think about the new poll with regard to racial division in the United States that shouldn't be there.
The poll I'm not aware of, but the fact that the racial division is increasing and has increased with respect to coincident with the rise of Obama is not surprising. You have to remember, I have an Alinskyite in the White House, and division is their motivation. It's
Correct.
What they want. It's the only way to. It's the way they get and maintain control. And the proof of how bad things are can be summed up in 2 words: Trayvon Martin.
Yeah, I was going to say Eric Holder, but yeah, Trayvon Martin.
No. I mean, people. No, look. There is general consensus that Eric Holder's an idiot. Black folks won't say it out loud, but ain't nobody defending Eric Holder. But if
He's
you
not
want to
stepping
see
down.
No, but he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
But if you want to see the division in this country, it really comes down to those 2 words: Trayvon Martin. Because if you really get into this, and unfortunately I did because it was part of another post that I did on my blog, if you look at what black people say about Trayvon Martin versus the overwhelming information that is available, as one of my old professors used to say, intuitively obvious to the casual observer. I mean, I'll give you just one example. What did Trayvon Martin have on him the night he was killed?
He had
Skittles.
he had Skittles and iced tea.
Well, it wasn't iced tea. It was Arizona watermelon fruit juice cocktail.
Heard that afterwards.
Here's what they don't want to tell you. You put those 2 things together with Robitussin, and you have a drug, a street drug that is called lean, or purple blank, or scissor. Excuse me, please. Now, and then you also have in the autopsy liver damage on Trayvon Martin, an otherwise healthy 17-year-old kid, consistent with dexamethorphan abuse. What is dexamethorphan?
At age 17, no less, to have
At
liver
age
damage.
17, what is dextromethorphan? Pick up a bottle of Robitussin, and then you tell me what dextromethorphan is. You mean to tell me that the night he died, the only thing he had on him was 2 of the 3 ingredients for a street drug? Did Trayvon Martin know about this street drug? Go check out his Facebook.
Yeah.
He knew what it was. He knew how to make it. He knew that he could substitute Robitussin for codeine cough syrup. Okay.
And you see this little innocent 12-year-old picture of him constantly.
And that's the thing. That has been sold to people on racial lines. This is racial line. You keep hearing people talk about this guy as a child. No 6-foot, 17-year-old guy is considered a child if he's throwing fists at anybody.
Exactly. Yep.
But the thing is, if you want to see the divide, you got to look at the not the denial of truth, just the denial of fact. We keep hearing the lie. The police told Zimmerman to stay in the car. And this is in spite of the fact that the 911 tapes and the transcripts of same are available on the internet.
The 911 call was actually edited too, which
you got that.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about the latest juror. All you heard about the latest juror is that she said George Zimmerman got away with murder.
That was
That's not
edited
what
too.
She didn't say that. What she did was she repeated a question that was asked of her. But she also said she did not believe the case should have gone to trial, and that got buried.
Well, neither did the grand jury, I believe, if it went to grand jury, or the investigators that were.
There was no grand jury.
Oh, okay, but the investigators that were looking into it saw that this was, a terrible accident, but it was not racist by any way, shape, or form, and it wasn't premeditated murder, and they threw it out. And by Obama, pushing it, they pushed it to go to trial. They tried to hang the guy out to dry.
And here is the thing. The FBI came in, looked around, went back to the Justice Department and said, not only can we not find any evidence that George Zimmerman was a racist, there is overwhelming or a preponderance of evidence that say that he was not.
Well, if anything...
Well, the whole civil rights case ended up coming to a very screeching halt.
Yeah, what happened to that?
Don, come on, man. It ain't 2014 yet.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, you got a point there.
That's true.
But if you put a cowboy hat on, nobody will notice it.
But getting back to the racial divide about the Trayvon Martin thing, I have something personal to talk about in that particular area, if you don't mind us talking about this.
No,
not at all.
Go ahead.
Okay. Now, there was someone I used to work with, and she's a 20-something young lady, biracial, and anyhow, she's no longer in the area. She moved back home, and we remained friends on Facebook. Well, when this Trayvon Martin thing happened, she believed all the hype and all that sort of thing, and, I never, said anything about it because, she's being so emotional that I felt there would be no point in saying anything, but the night that George Zimmerman was, exonerated, he's found not guilty, she was putting up some messages on her Facebook that I thought seemed kind of hateful, and I know her cover picture said, spread love, not hate, and so I just simply made a comment on that cover page that I just simply said, remember that. That's all I said on there, okay? Mm-hmm. Remember that. And her comment was, I'm not hating. And so anyway, after a while the post disappeared. I thought, well, maybe, she understood what I was trying to say. Some of the stuff she was saying was starting to sound a little hateful. And, after a while, I hadn't heard from her a few days, so I figured I'd check on her on Facebook. And I found that, I clicked on her page, and it said, as far as us being friends, it said add friend. Is like, did she just unfriend me?
She unfriended you?
Yes. I was like, wow.
Well, it's close-mindedness is what it is.
Yeah.
And ignorance.
Exactly.
Don't feel bad. That happens to me all the time, except it's white liberals that do it to me.
Hey, I defriended one person, and it's a guy I used to work with in New York who was a disc jockey still in New York, who started attacking me personally. And I said, this is on my own Facebook page. I don't need this crap. And he has my phone number. He has my phone number. If he wants to complain, he can call me up. So I just goodbye, you're out of here.
Yeah, I said something about it on my own page, how it bummed me out, whatnot, and I got a bunch of support from other people who basically said, we may not agree with everything that, you talk about, but nonetheless, we're going to stand with you because, nobody agreed with everybody, so, it's not to see that kind of
You're not going to
It's a matter of doing it with respect. I mean, you can voice your opinion, you can voice, you can enter debate, and that's something that we always try to do on the, at least on the Cowboy Logic stuff, to do it with respect.
Exactly.
Now, before we go here, Rosie, tell the listeners about how they can reach out to you, some of the sites that they can go to you, because you've got some great websites. Stan, I want you to do the same thing. Ladies first, though, of course. And so have at it, Rosie.
Great. Okay. Well, if anybody wants to see read any of my writing or contact me, you can go to rosieontheright.com. It's my own website, and it's Rosie at rosieontheright.com is my email. And I have several Facebook pages, Rosie on the Right and Rosie Johnson. I'm an administrator. I have three pages actually. And I'll be happy to friend you, or you can like one of my Facebook pages. I'm always interested in debates. I don't mind if you are if you think differently than I do, but you have to be respectful on my page. No cussing. I will delete you if you cuss, but you can say anything else that you want to say. You're entitled to be wrong.
You're entitled to my opinion.
If I want your opinion, I'll ask you for it.
Stan, you're Black Man Thinking with no G at the end.com, right?
Exactly. That's that. I also, you can find me on Blog Talk Radio, Man for God. That's basically all the web presence I have, except for my Facebook page, which is in my name. At this point, I don't have the energy to maintain multiple Facebook pages. That would probably drive me nuts.
It is tedious.
But no, that anyone can find me there, and I'm hoping to get a couple more posts out on the blog this month. Oh gosh, really? Okay, what's the day?
You got 1 day left.
Well, all right. Well, we'll try to get one out. But just always a lot of things coming. I'm thinking about trying to start dissecting Ted Cruz, because he's the only one I'm seeing out there from a elected political politician standpoint who has a federal office.
Love him.
That actually makes sense. I mean, I like Rand Paul, but he's too much like his dad, and that guy's out there.
Yeah, that's okay. He's fine too.
Yeah. The only thing Ron Paul is absolutely right about is it concerns the money supply.
Yep.
If you could just take everything else away and just deal with the money supply, Ron Paul's your guy.
Yeah, well,
Rand's a better version of Ron than Ron, but at the end of the day, that libertarianism will work once you get things back centered a little bit more. Right now, it's not enough to pull things back from the brink.
You keep printing $85 billion a month, chances are you are going to have a nice-looking 401k there, and the liberals don't understand that. Oh,
Keith,
my savings are fine. What's happening? What are you complaining about?
Keith, tell people how they can find you on Facebook, because you got a lot of great posts on your Facebook page. You are definitely somebody that our listeners need to friend up.
Okay, it's facebook.com/Keith Coppage.
That's Coppage, right, Keith?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
And I noticed that you took the picture down that was your profile picture today.
What did he have up there?
He had the little
kid
in the dog bowl.
Oh, that was such a great picture. A little kid head first in a dog bowl.
Yeah, I just put up the picture of me at a Mother's Day dinner. So
I saw that. And you know what? That's nice, and I appreciate the fact that you wanted to change your picture, but you got to go back to the kid in the dog bowl picture. That was classic.
Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. It's a touchy conversation.
It was an awesome conversation, and I hope Lady D was listening to this. I hope she's listening. If not, I'm going to get her to do the archive and check it out. Gentlemen, and our dear Rosie, we thank you dearly for joining us. Donna, you want to take us out with this and say goodbye to these folks?
Yes, I do. Rosie Johnson down in Florida, Stan Levy out on the left coast trying to put up with Mayor, or I should say Governor Moonbeam out there, and Keith Coppage in flyover country in Iowa. We want to thank you guys for taking the time out tonight to talk about something that, a whole bunch of topics that are just so important for this country. We got to remember we are all Americans. We are all one. And on that, I want to invite everybody to visit our partners in crime here at standupamericaus.org. That's standupamericaus.org. Major General Paul Vallely's website, and we've partnered with him, proud partners with him. And by the way, the Major General is coming out with a book, as well as, and actually you can get you can get it now, even though it hasn't actually come out in stores yet. And that is Special Ops Betrayed. Was it .org or .com? Ooh, Special Ops Betrayed. Okay, SpecialOpsBetrayed.com. And that is a book that Major General Paul Vallely wrote with Billy Vaughn. Billy and Karen Vaughn are the parents of Aaron Vaughn, who was one of the SEAL Team 6 members that got Osama bin Laden and was tragically killed in that Extortion 17 helicopter accident, if that's what you want to refer to it as, in Afghanistan. And the name of the book is called Betrayed, Exposing the High Cost of the War on Terror. And if you go to specialopsbetrayed.com, again, you can get it early, but please look for the book Betrayed, Exposing the High Cost of the War on Terror. Get yourselves educated also on what's going on, not only with Benghazi, but with Extortion 17. This is another huge phony problem, right? Right.
Yeah, the old phony scandal.
The old phony scandals, yeah. But this actually, Extortion 17 was before Benghazi. And please educate yourselves, gang. The internet is there. It's not going to be taught in the public school system. So try to find out what's going on so you can make a better educated decision for yourself, whether it be on the left or the right.
And the thing is, engage. Mm-hmm. That's why we set up the Cowboy Logic Facebook page, is so that you can engage. And the debates, there was a debate going on my personal page last night that was awesome between a conservative, a liberal, and what I would consider to be a libertarian. And it was, I didn't participate in it at all. I just sat back and watched it. But go to the Real Cowboy Logic. That's our Facebook page, and like it and engage. We want you to discuss. We want to open up dialogue, both on the left and the right. And again, like Rosie said, as long as it's respectful, we're all about it taking place. And it can get as heated as you want to, as long as it stays respectful.
Exactly. And again, try to get this book and read it. It's important. SpecialOpsBetrayed.com. Exposing the high cost of the war on terror. And I think if you go to StandUpAmericaUS.org, you might be able to find the links there. If not, it will be up shortly. The book is out in August. Extortion 17. It's a real tragedy. It's a real shame. And it needs to get some more exposure, a lot more exposure. And wake up, America, because this is the only great country left in this world.
That's right.
My humble opinion.
Hey, next week...
And I'll get off my soapbox.
You guys got to do some research before next week's show. You got to look up Claire Lopez, do some research, read her articles, dig deep, and find out who this woman is, because she is hugely impressive. Hugely impressive. So Claire Lopez is going to be with us next week.
All eyes are watching to see what you'll do. Who'll take the chance and make the first move? Will you shun the praise of the world in the moment of truth? The trumpets are sounding, the drums start to roll. The tempter is waging a war for your soul. Belongs to those who will fight to the end. So let's stand up and take each other's hands. We'll stand up with His power. We can stand up. Finally believing, finally taking a stand. When unbridled passions would fill us with pride, yield to our captain, we'll stay by his side, trusting the promise, knowing the power of His name. So let's stand up
Logic Radio. Unfiltered, politically incorrect, common sense. You've been listening to Cowboy Logic Radio, a division of DONNA FIDUCIA Production.